Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Sanandini, and I'm an entrepreneur and a host for this series. The agenda of this webinar is to create awareness about how many different ways you can take to work in the world's best companies. Today, we are privileged to have Palak Kapoor, who is an MBA grad from IIM Lucknow as a guest speaker. She's currently in Hong Kong working at Starbucks as a strategy manager for Asia Pacific region. She has many special experiences, some good, some bad, but each one was a learning. And I'm really happy to listen and pick up your brain for an interesting conversation today. She'll shed a spotlight on her transition from a small town life to MBA, marketing to consulting, consulting career pros and cons, and finally how to navigate your life to a different country without a job prospect beforehand. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please comment on the live chat and we will address them during the Q&A. Really happy to have you, Palak, and want to learn so many things from your experiences.
Thank you so much, Nandini. Thanks for having me. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here and speaking to the IIM community. So happy to share whatever life has taught me in a good or bad way with everyone.
So, Palak, let me ask you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your childhood, your background, what kind of a student you were you a dreamer or a realist, something like that.
Well, I come from the town of Amritsar in Punjab. I spent about 18 years of my life there before I moved to SRCC to do my graduation. I was a very naughty and a very mischievous kid, almost like a bully boss. So I would enjoy, very extrovert, like doing a ton of things, but at the same time, I was also a studious person or studious child. So much so that whenever I would get second or third position in my class, my parents won't like it so much. I don't know if they are listening to me right now, so I'm clearly going to have a conversation with them after this. But like being on the top, getting good marks, getting good grades was always something that I was promoted to do. So I did work hard. I used to perform well in my studies. And I guess that kind of really helped me, especially in the 12th standard, because getting into a good commerce college, you need to have a certain cutoff or certain grades. Obviously, in our times, we did not have these crazy 100% scores that students these days get. Even 94, 95 was considered just amazing that, how did we crack that?
So how was your 10th and 12th grade schools? How was your 10th and 12th?
My 10th and 12th grades were well. I'm going to do a humble brag here. They were pretty good. I was in an ICSE school till about 10th, and the English was pretty tough. So I'd like to believe that I did well. I had a 95.4. And guys, for context, I know this score might seem very less right now because everybody's getting 100, but at that time it was considered very good. But I stood third in my school. My parents were happy, but then they were like, third, not first. But in my 12th standard, I was not chasing to become or to top. I was just chasing to get enough score because I wanted to get into Shri Ram College of Commerce. And I successfully bagged 95.6. The cherry on the top was I also ended up topping the commerce stream in the entire Amritsar district. So I was elated. I was feeling that, oh my God, life mein ford diya. I have arrived in life. How a 18-year-old would feel by getting a score like that. However, when I went to SRCC and there were about 550 students in my batch, I thought I had gotten amazing grades, but I was still, I think, 116th on the list. So it was such a competitive environment because when people would introduce themselves, everybody was a topper. So they would say, hi, I'm XYZ, topper from Maharashtra. I'm ABC, topper from Lucknow. And I was like, okay, well, that was the first shock that life gave you that, you are not it. There are so many like you.
So was your motivation scores still then, or was it some long-term goal that you were chasing at that point?
No, I wasn't chasing any long-term goal, to be honest. I was just an 18-year-old who was told by society that this is what success looks like. You get into a good college is equivalent to good job is equivalent to good life. So I think that narrative that gets instilled in our heads at a young age was something that was in my head as well. Ki अच्छे college में गए, so it is a ticket to good life, and I think the goal was very short term. I needed to get into a good place and get a good job, and maybe my life was happy or would be happy. So it was very short term oriented at that stage.
So you went and did your MBA right after your bachelor's, which is not, I don't know, was it very normal and common during your time?
I would, I Yeah, maybe, because after your graduation, people would start thinking about what next, and there were just a few career paths, and I'm talking almost 12, 13 years back, right? Either you could pursue higher education, or you could get a job. And when it comes to higher education, out of BCom, people either would do CA, or they would try for an MBA. Some of them even did masters and went abroad, while a major chunk of them wanted to work. So I think when I was in my second year, I was 20 years old. I didn't know much. I didn't have, and at that time, we did not have so much of education and awareness, even online, to know what were the prospects. There were very limited career paths that one could choose. And I just relied on my network and friends, and we would ask, okay, so what are you doing? I think I will apply for CAT. So I'm joining Time. I think I'll apply for CAT. I'm joining Bullseye. And then this FOMO factor starts coming into you that you don't have anything, and what are you going to do? I was like, oh, okay, I will also apply for Time. So I think it was as bad as it sounds, but that's the truth. And I kind of just signed up for Time during my second year ending in third year starting, because that was the time everybody would spend the next 4 5 months of their life just trying to give mock exams and prepare for their CAT. So that's exactly what happened with me as well.
So do you recommend people right now, you have been through the journey, do you recommend people to directly go and pursue MBA or take a work ex and then go and pursue MBA?
It's a difficult question, and I feel that to each its own. There's no right or wrong. If you ask me what my personal opinion is, and if there is something that I can go back and change, I would definitely like to get some experience before doing my MBA. Some people in my batch, or even I would like to believe that not having an experience wasn't something that was detrimental for my career growth. And I would like to believe that things kind of worked out well for me. And there are some people who really believe that having that exposure to a working environment before doing an MBA would have helped them. For me personally, the areas, the things that I felt would have helped me is that in MBA, you have a lot of courses around organizational behavior, game theory, this and that, where having some context of how businesses are run kind of helps you understand those concepts better, helps you bring meaningful perspectives to a classroom. Imagine if you have never been to an office, or even if you've been to an office but in a limited internship way, you still don't have a wide exposure to how companies are run. And in a class where the HR is asking that, why is it important to have a good boss? I mean, you don't have any exposure. You're just making things up. So I feel this is a very rudimentary example, but things like this kind of just help you understand what's happening in class. And I feel that if I had the opportunity to go back and change something, I would have loved to work for at least a year or two and then do it.
And what is your opinion on being part of a club where people who have worked are part of it and you're networking with them and talking to those people, getting their experience?
When you say part of a club, what do you mean? On campus?
Not a campus, but basically meeting people who know things or know better about the industry and, networking with them. What is your opinion on that? Do you think at an early stage when you were 20-year-old, you could talk to people like these that would have helped you a lot?
I feel one, if I kind of draw an equation to what really makes a person succeed in their career, I'm only talking about professional career here. You will give hard work as one variable. a little bit of luck, being at the right place at the right time as something else. The third pillar, according to me, is going to be networking. It is so huge and it is so important. And I think people do not understand what kind of opportunities can it unlock. Um, how I landed my job over here was completely due to networking. And I mean, networks and platforms like this, which can help you connect with people who may have had a little more experience than you, or may have had a very different experience than you. Just hearing them can spark that idea that you're waiting for. Hearing them can sensitize you to something that you already not that you don't know. It can kind of widen your perspective that, oh yes, maybe there is something that I did not think about. There is, each one of us has, we have our own journeys and we have our own stories, and each story is so unique. One is different from the other. And I think networking is so important, just to cross pollinate some of those ideas, and just
Yeah.
get to know what the other person is doing. So definitely, yes, one should start networking as early as possible. And I'm not talking about the networking where you, for the lack of a better word, just start licking somebody's ass because you want something. But it is just from you come from a place of curiosity, that I don't want anything from you. I don't want you to give me a job. I just want to know what you do and how you got there. Maybe I'll get an idea that will help me at some point in time in my life. I think that mindset is very important.
Understood. I think we at AltUni also specified this a lot, that we want people to come at young age, specifically when you don't know anything, you don't know people around, what is happening in the industry. So we have a club known as AltUni Club, where we encourage people to come and make networks, take up courses. As you said, that you need courses where you can practically understand what is happening. Is having a good boss a good thing? So we have those things where, in internships we go and study and learn, but it's more over like a research. But here we are giving practical knowledge to help people. Form a club where you can meet, people from bookmyshow.com or some HUL people. So we have this club and we want all of you to just have a look and, maybe join if you could, because that's how networking works and we are here to help you guys. So just check it out if you want. Other than this, Palak, so tell us something about your internship. You did an internship in marketing from HUL, but eventually you joined Accenture as a consultant. So what is it that you felt that consulting was a better fit for you instead of marketing?
You want to know my true answer, or you want to know the answer that is going to sound good?
Audience, what do you want? I think we are very much into truth. So,
Okay, so the truth is that I did not intentionally choose any of it. I was somebody who did not have any work ex. So I didn't know what a marketing job is going to be like. I didn't know what a consulting job was going to be like. And when you join a B school, everybody makes consulting sounds very sexy. And obviously, there are reasons as to why it can be a very attractive or alluring career. So imagine you've just come from, like you've just graduated, and people are showing you this consulting dreams, and your eyes are sparkling that, oh my God, I want to do it too. I want to live that life. Everybody says there's a lot of travel, and each one of us has a traveler inside of us, and we start dreaming that I'll travel the world and I'll consult. So I think that kind of narrative was sold to us as well. And during my internship, truth be told, I even applied to consulting organizations. And the way, if the audience has MBA students, they would resonate that during placements, the consulting organizations come at day zero. Like they're the first ones to see they're the first ones to interview, and they get like the first slot of the day. And after that, only the other organizations then get to see the students. So I did appear for 2 consulting interviews on day zero. I got through the process, but I didn't get the job. And that's when the next best option was HUL. And obviously, when you think of marketing, which also sounds very sexy, you have brand management and all these fun things. The first names that come to your mind are HUL, P&G, Coke, some of those companies. So then I sat for their interviews. And luckily, HUL ended up working out for me. It's been like I've been working for 8 years. Those 3 months at HUL were just amazing. I learned so much. There's a reason why it is such a big brand name because of the learning and the amount of consumer science that they use in brand management. I had a great time. I was working on coffee. I didn't know that learning that I had at my internship is going to help me 8 years later in the current job that I'm doing. But anyway, and then I guess at that time, HUL was not really giving a lot of pre-placement offers, and we were like a huge batch of 50, 60 interns, and they handed out some 6 or 7 pre-placement offers of me. So unfortunately, things didn't end up working out for me. And that's when I had to sit for final placements. Now, when you sit for final placements, you don't think, you just want a job, right? You want a job out of your MBA. And I applied to all organizations, including Accenture, which had come for consulting roles. And at that time, the first job you get, you have to take it and you have to exit the process because they have to make sure that every child gets a job or every student gets a job. So the first interview I sat was for Accenture and I got the job. So I did not have the opportunity to sit for other marketing jobs. And that's how consulting happened to me.
You didn't choose consulting.
Well, I did apply for consulting, so I was very much open to it. And honestly, I thought that marketing job kiya hai, mujhe understanding hai what the job is going to be like, which is great. But if I don't apply to consulting, I would not know what a consulting life is going to be. So let me give myself that opportunity to see this job as well. And it's a great company, great brand. They were coming at day zero, great package. So you like just apply. And that's what I did, and I ended up getting the job. In hindsight, I think that was one of the best things happening to me in my life.
Okay. So you joined Accenture and you worked there for 7 years. And you didn't even look around. It was, I don't know, maybe you did, but it was like 7 years straight in Accenture. And you also got 2 promotions within there. So I want to understand your career growth within Accenture. What was your first role to start with?
Well, they say that if people have to leave consulting, they'll usually do in the first 2 years because either you like it or you don't. And also, if you've spoken to many consultants, which I'm pretty sure you have, you'll hear this thing that every time you'll hear a consultant saying, "Yaar, chhodna hai, bas ab switch karna hai," but they never switch because at the end of the day, the kind of learnings, the kind of perks, and all these things kind of keep holding you back, and that inertia also gets stops you. So, and plus, I Accenture is a great organization. I had a very good time. I was very lucky to get very good projects and to get opportunities which I'm not too sure some of my other colleagues were able to get or not. But anyway, I joined Accenture as an analyst. So they have 5 levels, just as any other consulting organization would have: an analyst, and then a consultant, a manager, a senior manager, and then a partner. So I joined at the entry level as an analyst. I spent about 2.5 years at that level and then moved to a consultant. Again, spent 2.5 years, moved to a manager. And just when I was about to move to the next level, that's when life happened and I had to quit. But yeah, I had a very interesting time. Talk more about it, but I'm wondering if there's anything specific that you'd like me to talk about.
First of all, I wanted to know that, say, if you had to compare you with your MBA classmate with work experience. So, if anyone who joined with you, I don't know if anyone did in Accenture with work experience versus you. So, were you guys in par with each other at every level, like maybe salary wise, maybe the hierarchy wise? So, did Accenture see you as the same level as people who are with the work experience?
Right. So it's a good question. I'll answer this in parts. I think salary wise, if you join a consulting organization after your MBA, but if you have WorkX, which is relevant. So when I say relevant WorkX, that means if you have already worked in consulting before joining MBA, then they factor in that experience. And all my all my batchmates who joined Accenture, we pretty much joined at the same level, which was analyst. However, within analyst level also there are certain bands like analyst A1, analyst A2. A2 is someone which has a slighter, I mean, a higher work ex. So so my colleagues which had relevant work ex, they ended up joining at A2 and I ended up joining at A1. Now because they ended up joining at A1, I think their salary had a slight increase than mine, but it was not so drastic, right? If you have work ex, but if it is not a consulting work ex, then at least Accenture does not take that as relevant work ex, and you join at A1. So that's the difference when it comes to salary. In terms of performance, I don't think there was any difference at all. Because MBA is going to help you understand the concepts. You will, the concepts of IRR, NPV, consumer segment, and all these MBA terms, jargons will not sound alien to you when you start working. However, the real learning happens on the job. And if you are smart, if you're quick enough to pick up the skills, then there's not going to be much of a differentiation between you and your colleagues who's had some work ex. I think the only nuance that I'd like to point out is that somebody who has been exposed to a working environment has those softer skills of how to present, how to behave, work-based dynamics, what to say, what not to say, how to form working relationships, networking, which as a fresher doesn't naturally come to you. So I think my first 2 years in my job was a lot about learning some of these, and I had good mentors who would call me out and say, "Aise mat bolo, next time email aise karo, and don't say these things in front of the boss." So I think it was a bit of a learning journey for me till I became mature to know what to say and what not to say.
Second, I want to know practically, completely practically, when you got promoted, how did your responsibility and roles changed in consulting itself?
Well, they definitely change a lot. As an analyst, you get staffed on projects where you have a consultant cover, you have a manager cover. So manager is the one who's driving the project, doing the thinking, and obviously you are also doing some thinking, but not at a macro level. Consultants end up owning work streams, and analysts are the ones who basically translate the work into things. So let me give you a practical example. Let's say Starbucks comes to you and says that, we want to enter the India market and we want to do a market study to see if the market is attractive enough or not. They get Accenture sells this project. The manager on the project will kind of think about that. Okay, what kind of things do I want to analyze? So he or she will make the market plan or the scoping exercise. She will be interacting with the client, understanding client needs, translating that. So a lot of that work gets done at the managerial or exec level. And then let's say for this project scoping, you want to understand the size of the coffee addressable market in India, and then you also want to do a consumer research to understand if they will be receptive to the brand or not. So you've created two work streams. Most likely you'll have two consultants working on each of those work streams. And then with each consultant will be an analyst. So an analyst and consultant kind of work hand in hand. Consultant has more experience, so he or she can guide the analyst a bit more, that go and get these numbers, maybe create this Excel, maybe come back to me with so and so. So I think there's a lot of doing and learning at an analyst level. At a consultant level, you end up driving a certain portion of that work. And at a managerial level, you basically are accountable and responsible for getting that work done. And obviously, at levels above that, you are the one who's selling the work, talking to the client. Managerial layer is, I feel, the trickiest layer because तुम्हें दोनों side से मतलब you get squeezed in. If your team does horrible work, you get the backlash and you have to clean the shit out of your team. So I think the stress level remains the same. The type of stress keeps changing as you keep growing higher in your career journey.
Understood. Really nice example. I think I understood it very nicely. So, how many hours did you work in general?
Well, it's a I don't think anybody can answer that question. I can maybe just say that yes, if you are thinking of joining consulting, please be prepared for putting in substantial hours. It's not going to be a job that you can just walk in with your coffee and say hi at 10:30, 11 p.m. and then walk out at 5 p.m. saying, I'm going home for my class. No, it doesn't work like that. Definitely the hours are more as compared to other jobs. Or actually, I shouldn't be even comparing that to other jobs because these days all jobs are very demanding. So, I will take that word back. But uh, on an average, I ended up working 9, 10 hours every day. But there were certain projects, and they were not a lot, but there were projects where I even worked till 2, 3 a.m. and then woke up at 7 a.m. to start working again. When the deadline time comes, you
Yeah.
have to put in that hour. When there's a client meeting, you can't say no to, you have to sort of do it. And it's a part of every job, I feel. So there were those days as well. And then there were days when the work was light and I would pack my laptop at 5 p.m. saying I'm going for a yoga class and bye bye, life is great. So I think one of the things that made me stick on with Accenture was that there was a good balance of things that could be managed at a reasonable 7 p.m., 8 p.m. And then there were days when I had to work a lot as well. So overall, I think I was pretty happy and balanced.
Understood. I wanted to dig a bit deeper on how promotion works in consulting and just wanted to know you got promoted, I think, almost on an average after 2.5 years. Almost, it was similar for both. So, wanted to know if it is a normal thing to get promoted in that tenure. And other than that, I want to know the experience. Like, how did you get promoted? Why did you get promoted? Is there a step that, okay, the time is the initial goal or meeting some targets? Or is there a job opening, maybe something like that? So, I wanted to
Okay.
dig.
So two questions here. I guess first, in terms of what is the time, right? Now, in most of these the MBBs, if I recall, which is McKinsey, BCG, Bain consulting environment, they have a very strict up and out that you have to, after every 2 years, like the moment 24th month ends, and obviously, I mean, this is the information I know from my friends. I may be wrong, uh, but I can only tell what I know, that they have an up and out, that after every 24 months, you get reviewed if you are doing well. So you either move up to the next level or you can be put on an improvement plan or you can be asked to leave. However, that that didn't work in Accenture. We did not have an up and out, and promotion was based, of course, on your performance, your tenure, availability of a slot, which is, how many people are going to be promoted that year. So some people, you minimum had to spend a certain amount of time at a particular level. For example, minimum 2 to 3 years at an analyst level, minimum 2 to 3 years at a consultant level, and then at least 3 to 4 years at a manager level before you kind of move up. So they had their thresholds, which were revised every year, but more or less they remained the same. If you performed really well, they could make an exceptional case for you and give you like an early jump. Some of them got early jumps, some of them had to spend more than a couple of years. But obviously, they also had that, stage gates that if you've spent 5 years at a level, then I mean, it's a reason of concern that why are you not moving to the next level? And that's when the company would help the employee think about how to learn better, how to do better. So I would say that a bit of luck, a bit of hard work, I was able to get timely and in some cases premature jumps as well, because as a young kid you have that drive that karna hai, I want to go to the next level, I want to put in that effort. So I think at an early stage I had that drive and put in that effort to get my jumps. um, Now coming to your second question, which is that how can one get promoted in a consulting environment? I think it's a very generic answer. It's at least in Accenture, it was a very big factor of what your performance. So if you're doing well, if you're getting good reviews, if your feedbacks are great, then of course, that hygiene factor is there. What but everybody was pretty much doing grades. But then let's say there are five of you and you only have three slots. How do you prioritize? And that's when I think there was a little bit factor of your tenure as well. That if somebody from last cycle did well but could not get because there were not those slots available, then that person was prioritized. And then they also considered that if you had done something more differentiated than your peers in terms of, let's say, client work is one thing, but then you also have teamwork, you also have so many different projects, thought capital, reports that you can write, you can kind of go above and beyond. So that thing was also factored in to see that whether you have that differentiating edge or not. These are some generic things that work in Accenture, but of course, at a manager level, whether you are ready to become a manager level, apart from whether you are doing well or not, they kind of also considered that whether you are ready to be client facing or not, whether you have the ability to build something of your own or not, whether it is a new practice area. So I think those kind of things changed depending on what level you are at, and then you are evaluated accordingly.
Understood. So coming to a bit general consulting, can you just maybe name any two pros and cons of consulting?
Definitely. Now that I'm on the industry side of things, those things keep becoming very apparent. I think the pace of consulting is something that anybody who's looking to learn at a faster rate, especially early in their lives, I feel consulting gives you that great platform. While you are in it, you don't realize and you can keep cribbing. अरे ऑयल एंड गैस इंडस्ट्री का प्रोजेक्ट आ गया, कंज्यूमर गुड्स का आ गया, अरे मुझे यहाँ ट्रैवल करना पड़ रहा है, माय लाइफ सक्स, we keep ranting about it. But only when you get out, you realize that, oh my God, in those 2 years, I have learned about 6 different industries and I know so many. I have made a network. I've learned so much. That is one thing that consulting really gives you, and it's not very easy to come by. The other is, like, I kind of partially answered my question or partially answered point two, which is just that wide perspective. If you join industry, like, you are sort of committed to that industry, but in consulting, your perspective, your horizon just broadens a lot. You get sensitized to so many different topics. So that learning that can come to you at a very early age is something that consulting provides. So yeah, those would be my two big pros. In terms of cons, I won't say con. I can answer this question for me personally. Every person has their own perspective. I think at some point I started feeling that I'm advising too much and I'm not getting my hands dirty. Not all consulting projects are going to be from thinking about or from strategy to implementation. Mostly you would be just doing the analysis and advising the clients on what to do, how to do. But it is just in their hands on whether they want to do it or not. So many times I felt that, yeah, मैं ज्ञान बांट रही हूँ, मतलब वो क्या रहा है? I want to do two things. I want to get my hands dirty. I did get some of that opportunity in some long-term projects, but then that thought keeps coming back to you that I want to do it. So that was, I guess, one. The other thing is, knowing about 10 different industries can both be a pro and a con, because then you kind of wonder that am I too big a generalist? I know about consumer goods, but do I really know about consumer goods? And somebody who has spent a lot of time in that industry by working there definitely knows more than you. And I think that started hitting me at a later stage in my career, where I was like, okay, बहुत ज्ञान बांट दिया. Maybe I want to do things. Maybe I want to get that depth of understanding. So yeah, I guess for some that would be a little bit of a turn off, and that's why people switch careers very often.
Understood. So you left your life in Accenture and joined Starbucks in Hong Kong. I want to know why after 7 years of your career.
Because I fell in love with a boy who was living in Hong Kong. That's the I guess that's the real answer. I don't want to say some sob story कि ये करना था, but yeah, I guess my now husband, then boyfriend, he was studying here and wanted to sort of work here. And I had spent working in India for about 7.5 years with, I guess, exposure on smaller projects outside of India as well. But I was kind of feeling that maybe I want to try a new country, maybe I want to work in a different environment. And that's when, the prospect of moving to Hong Kong came in my personal life that, would I want to do it? And I was like, maybe let me just give myself a change. Let me see how that change is going to be. I was very scared. I was shit scared whether I would be successful or not. And especially when you become too comfortable in your job and you are doing well and you see a growth path, just shaking things up was not easy. But I think I was kind of going through those thought processes in my head that what to do. And these days quarter life crisis is the new trend. You don't have midlife crisis. You kind of get that quarter life crisis in your career as well, where you take a pause, you reevaluate that whether I'm on the right path or not. And I had never taken a break in my career, like study after that, next job,
Yeah.
and this, that. So I was also thinking that maybe this is a time to give myself a bit of a break, go to a different country, live there, experience a new life, and we'll see what comes. So because I'm a very type A personality, a planner, need to have a plan in life. And this was the first time where I did not have a plan in life. I was very scared. I was like, what if I don't find a job? What if I'm a failure then? I mean, all those things came to my mind eventually. But then, you just take a deep breath. You tell yourself that have confidence. You have come so far. You can find something. Um, but it's okay. Give yourself that, take that leap of faith. And that's how I found myself in Hong Kong.
So just to understand, you fell in love, you married, and you went to Hong Kong without a job prospect in
That
your.
is,
That is what happened. Okay. So let's get into that discussion now. So you are in a new country with no job. So no job. And just to start with, how did you even search for new jobs?
you know, uh, before answering that question, I do want to share how I felt because I think people who might hear this at some point may resonate with this feeling that, when you have worked your entire life or entire work life, you are independent. You have been managing things on your own. You don't know what it feels like to be not working because all that you know is that I have a job, and then suddenly you don't have a job, and you don't know what am I going to do from Monday to Friday. How am I going to fill my time? Those thoughts are scary, and you can put yourself in a very negative thought loop that what am I going to do? And obviously, Hong Kong, from what I had heard from my husband and from some of my friends who had made similar moves, Hong Kong was not an easy market, especially with you know uh, the city saw its protest and job market was pretty lean. There was language barrier. I had heard horrific stories of people never finding jobs, even though they were coming from great pre schools. Like they spent 9 months without a job. So I came with that fear that, अरे यार मतलब यहाँ पर तो job ना हो जाए, what am I going to do? And I don't know what it is to live a life without earning. So I was like, oh shit, now what am I going to do? Those kind of things. Um, but anyway, I guess I had some good support system over here. My husband, my parents were always saying, "Oh no, you can do it. You can do it." So I think that was that constant reinforcement kind of helped me. And obviously, I didn't. I would say that even though I started from scratch, I had my husband's experience to tap into because he also had gone through a very similar job search process. So he was there to kind of help me. Okay, you must do this and you must do that. The doing had to be done by me, but at least there was someone who was there to help. One thing I'll say that in Indian B schools, I think we are spoiled because the companies come to us to offer us job. We get served a job on a platter and we get to see over 50, 60 companies over a period of 7 days. So you definitely know that, okay, I'm going to go through the placement process, and I will come out with a job in 7 days. However, the real world is so different, and that was my first big shock that nobody's coming to serve me a job now. And I kind of started, cold calling, applying on different company portals. There would be no answer. Some would say, sorry, we don't want to interview you. And you would feel that, oh shit, am I so bad? What happened? Those rejection emails, when you come, when they come, they can toss your fake morale and fake ego that you build around yourself, that I've been in consulting, I've been doing this, and then suddenly how can this company say that we are not going to offer you the job? So I think I kind of went through that entire journey, and there were a bunch of things that I did. I would say one has to become respectfully shameful, and that was the thing that I had to learn how to do. What I mean is that you have to just keep applying. I kind of made a list of companies that I thought I wanted to work with, went on their site and saw what kind of openings they had. Some of the openings resonated with me, some of the openings didn't really resonate with me. I applied anyway, that chalo, let me see whether I get a call or not. The conversion rate is extremely low. The response rate is extremely low. Some companies you will apply and they will not never get back to you. Some will get back to you after 8 months. Some will come back to you with the automated email that's saying no. So the response rate is very, very less. That was one thing that I did. Second thing I did was, just some roles that I would find on platforms like LinkedIn. Let's say there's a company XYZ and I find a great role. I would just go online and find people working in that organization who have common connections with me, or maybe are from the same alum network, and I would just cold call them. So that's where I guess respectfully shameless comes into place. So you have to be shameless about asking for help. And pehle to I would think whether I should write to them or not. Kya karun, kya nahi. Then I was like, let's just do it. I want the job and I need their help. And I would write to them saying, hey, I found this role. Can you just help me understand a bit more about the role? Can you push my CV? So I think that was other thing that I kept doing. And then I guess network. Especially in international geographies, I've seen that people are very open to having those chats, those coffee chats. They are also looking for good talent. And if they see that you bring in the relevant kind of skills, they are open to having those chats. Not all chats materialize into a job. For once, it happened with me that someone said, "Hey, I would like to have a chat. Let's understand." I didn't like the role, but I went for that conversation anyway. He explained the role to me. I didn't like the role, and he asked me, "What do you want to do?" I explained the role to him, and he was like, "Do you know? I think my friend might be interested to hire you," and he referred me to his friend, and I ended up getting that job. I didn't end up taking it, but I got the offer from them, and I was like, "Wow, this is the power of networking." Like, just be open, talk to people across different levels. You just don't know what might click. So I think that's how my offers kind of ended up happening for me. And like the fourth would be update your LinkedIn profile. I never did. I did it after almost 8 years. That's when I put myself out there. And headhunters, I mean, what other source do they have except for your LinkedIn to actually uh, look at what you do and look at your experience rather than just labels? So I think once I put my LinkedIn profile there, switched on that option that I'm looking for a job, I had a lot of headhunters reach out to me saying, "We have a job, you could talk about it." And I just had that conversation with them, which ended up working out for me.
So, how did you get into Starbucks?
Well, I found a LinkedIn job and I just kind of applied. By the way, by then I already had a job offer and I was like almost okay taking that job. It was a good job. I was happy about it. But when I felt Starbucks, I was like, Starbucks, coffee, let me apply. I'm a huge consumer, so I love the brand. And they had the job was internal consulting, and I was like, wow, checks my box. It was a regional role. I was like, great, I'll get exposure to some of the more global roles. A consumer brand, great. Free coffee, great. I just applied for that job. Luckily, I feel when things have to work out, they kind of work out. Uh, and I applied just for fun because I had a job. I had said yes to the job and I was going to join that job a month later. So I was just doing my fun stuff on LinkedIn and I applied. 2-3 days later, the Starbucks HR reached out to me on LinkedIn saying, "Hey, we got your job application. Do you want to have a chat?" And I didn't want to tell her that I already have a job. I was like, "Okay, let's have a chat." And I had a chat with her. She explained the role to me. I liked the role. She was like, "Would you like to interview?" Then I told her, I said, "See, I already have a job. I would like to interview, but you will have to rush the interview process for me because I have to say yes or no to my other company as well." They lined up the interviews for me in a matter of 2 to 3 days, made me an offer. I liked the offer. I said yes. So I had to go back to the other company and say, "Oops, sorry, won't work. But thank you." That's how Starbucks happened.
So before you said that consulting had this very big con that not con, you was talking about pros only, that you get into many places, but the one thing you don't do is implement them, you just suggest. So I wanted to understand, you said you're doing internal consulting now. So there has to be a difference because internal means you are doing consulting only for Starbucks. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, just asking.
That is right.
So yeah, so what is the difference in your role now, seeing it as a complete consulting point of view, that how you consulted shifted your perspective, and did that con that you were talking about was actually like turned into a pro in this role now?
Well, I hope so. I'm just 3 months into my job, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I can get the most out of this job. But I think one thing that has changed is that, of course, the consulting part for the organization remains, where you set your goal, that what is it that we are going to do in the next 2 to 3 years, and there's a proper plan, a very detailed plan that you make at the beginning of every year. And I was a part of that planning process. That where do we want to invest? What do we want to do? How do we want to grow? So you do exactly the same things as you do for a client consulting project, but for your own organization. What it what then happens is that, okay, you've made these plans that we want to invest in XYZ initiative, or we want to launch a new product, or this, that. And that's when, after that exercise of planning, comes the operational plan, where you work with the team and you actually make that happen. So you just don't say, "Oh, we told you that you had to invest in XYZ," then the leadership is like, "Ab karo." And that's when you work with those specific teams. For example, we want to launch a different type of platform, and then you partner with the R&D and the product team, and then work with them to launch those things. And then you see the impact of that on your sales and revenue. And then after 1 year, your boss is like, "Oh, you said that this particular investment can give us 5% revenue growth. We only have 3% revenue growth. What happened?" So I think you're kind of accountable. You see it through the end. You have a very wide visibility to how things actually happen. What are the challenges? And I think as a consultant, it's very good for you to get that on ground understanding of how things run and function.
And what is your role in Starbucks?
So we have a corporate strategy team, which is a team of 6 people. So I am a part of that team, and they are responsible for translating the global strategy into regional strategy. And there are 14 Starbucks markets in APAC that sort of report into Asia Pacific. So we help those markets to implement those strategies. If they have certain challenges, we work with them to troubleshoot and help them unlock growth. So I think we are those, how shall I say, the thinking minds, the advisors, and helping maybe sell more coffee.
And can you just tell us some perks that you get in Starbucks?
Oh, I get a lot of perks. There's free Starbucks coffee. When I was in India working in Accenture, my office was in Cyber Hub, and there was a Starbucks, and I used to have. When I would come to office, I would have 2 Starbucks every day, one in the morning and one at 3, 4. So
You were so rich.
so that's no. Uh, just for context, we used to also work from home and then sometimes travel. So we would come to office twice a week. So
Okay.
that means four coffees.
Okay.
Okay, okay. Just for context. But anyway, I mean, Starbucks in India is still at a higher price point, and that was one little indulgence of mine. Every person has their indulgence. I'm not a big foodie, but I love my coffee and love my drinks. So I used to spend money on that. And then, after every month, when I would see my uh, budgeting chart, I would see, oh my God, I've spent so much money on Starbucks. So when I came here and I joined the job and I was asking the HR, okay, what are you going to pay me? What is the compensation going to be? And she was like, this, that. And my next question was, is there going to be free coffee? And she was like, of course. And I was like, yes, I'm sold because I think I'm going to save so much money. So in when you are in office, we have a proper like island with all the machines and all the syrups, and we are taught how to make coffee. So you can have as many iced lattes or macchiatos that you want. We also get coffee coupons. I think 5,000 rupees a month, where and you can buy any Starbucks merchandise or coffee. And then over and above that, there's also a 30% discount that we get. Um, and yeah, when you're in office, you have new coffees being tried, and they need guinea pigs to try those coffees. So, you kind of taste things as well. Yeah, the culture is amazing. The culture is amazing.
Great. And you were talking about, before we started this webinar, you were talking about the perks, like how employee-centric Starbucks is. So
It
can you
is.
just give us a couple of examples of what they do to keep their staff or employees very happy?
Starbucks is a very people-centric organization. The first day that I came, there was this big thing written, which is that we are not in the business of coffee. We are in the people business serving
Mhm.
coffee. Because at the end of the day, it's a consumer brand. Um, and unless and until, I mean, nobody wants to go to a Starbucks store where the baristas are harsh to you. The reason they feel welcome at a store is because they're like, welcome to Starbucks, hi, and there's a sense of personalization. So they take care of their employees a lot and also their customers a lot. And I mean, we have regular surveys and they kind of keep asking, are you feeling good? Are you feeling stressed? Do you need this? Do you need that? And they take action as well, which I think I really love. We are a small team in AP. We're about 5,300. And yeah, I mean, we keep getting treats. We keep getting pampered by the organization, which which feels great because you feel very welcomed and very valued in an organization like that.
And what is the theory about making every employee work as a barista?
Well, it's something the company swears by because they say that if you are going to be making strategy or if you're going to be running a company, which is a people company, you would not know how things function unless you go on ground. And that's why we have a mandatory 2-day training where we have to be a barista. We are given a green apron. We are taught how to make coffees. We are taught how to clean, and we are taught how to serve. And I think it's one of the best experiences because you really understand the how operations function, what are the challenges, and now when you go back to office and actually make that strategy, you have a good context to go back.
Okay. Now to dig deeper into maybe Hong Kong, I am not very familiar with the country, with the place and whatever the culture is. So I wanted to know if the working hours are as strenuous as in India and the culture and maybe the language also, how much of a barrier it is.
Well, culture, I think Asian culture overall in general is similar. People are hardworking. Uh, Although I will say Indians are way more hardworking. Obviously, there is respect for work-life balance as well. This is one of those places where dinners are served at 7 p.m. So everybody, tries to work till 6, but they start early at around 8. And then, just have some time to themselves. So that's one, but it's very disciplined. Um, in terms of language, yes, there is language barrier. I think a lot of, especially when you are working with Chinese clients and Chinese companies, because first language is either Cantonese or Mandarin. So there were some roles that I was looking at which were great and I wanted to pursue, but knowing the language was a criteria because of which I couldn't pursue those roles. So I think that kind of challenge definitely comes finding the roles which are more international, where the growth would not be hampered if you don't know the language. And I think that kind of restricts the availability pool. And that's the difference between, I guess, Hong Kong and Singapore. Singapore is more international. You don't have these language barriers over there, whereas they are slightly more in Hong Kong.
Okay. And what about the consumer behavior if you compare India versus Hong Kong people in terms of maybe Starbucks? Are they more loose with their cash or like they spend more compared to India?
No, I would say Asians in general are very particular and they monitor where their money goes unless you earn so much that you don't even care about a $40 coffee. Um, but at least I guess I see a lot of young crowd and expats here, and coffee drinking culture is quite a lot. So not only Starbucks faces intense competition in Hong Kong from some of the smaller, more localized coffee shops, which have their local brews, um, and people are generally youngsters are out there having coffee. So I think they do spend on those indulgences, and definitely if I compare that to India, the spending power is higher, and the spending power on coffee is also more.
And how is the visa process there?
Visa is relatively easy, and I say easy because I'm comparing it to US, which is like a monster when it comes to getting your visas and all. So for me, my husband had a visa which was IANG type, and that visa is very similar to the H-1B in the US, whereas the visa is given to you, and you are free to work with any company. Um, if, let's say, God forbid, you lose your job, you are not asked to leave. You can still just exist and find your new job. So that visa category is great. And because of that, you can easily bring a dependent. So I'm on a dependent visa here. And the visa process was like in 2 weeks, I had my visa. And my visa also allows me to work, which is great. And I think that kind of liberty is not there in other markets where spouses to apply for a separate visa, get permissions to work, and the process is much more cumbersome.
That's nice to know. So before we stop with my questions and take the Q&A session, I just wanted to know what is your plan going forward from here? What
I have no
motivates
plan,
you?
yeah. I don't have any plan. If you would have asked me this question when I was 26, 27, I would have given you a plan with Excel sheet, with graphs, with a Gantt chart, what I want to do. But I think as you experience life, you understand that you just don't know. Obviously, I mean, you know, but the world is changing so fast. Skills are getting redundant. Uh, I mean, the kind of options that are out there right now in terms of what you can do, how you can make money, those options were not available a decade back. I mean, you look at people; they are following such offbeat, unconventional journeys, and they are doing well for themselves. So I would say, and I keep telling this to myself, I would say this to anybody who asks me this question, that my plan is to spend this decade of my life in learning as much as I can. I would pursue those roles, those projects which are even hard but can make me learn. I'm going to stay curious, very open minded. Because what happens after 40 years, you start then milking the skills that you have acquired in your 30s. So that's my game plan. That learn as much as I can, then become some expert in my next decade. And yeah, I think retire early and then travel.
Nice, nice goal. So I think it was really nice understanding your experience. And let me put across this opportunity to our viewers and see if they have any questions for you or not.
Sure, guys, ask away.
Okay, I think many people chatted. So one was asking, was Accenture your first job?
Yes, Accenture was my first job. I joined right after my MBA.
How was your experience as a consultant in the consulting era help you in the corporate world?
Uh, it was very helpful. I think being or my journey or my experience in consulting really helped me to problem solve, in the sense that koi bhi problem aa jaye, over time you develop a mindset where you can break that into smaller parts, look at it from a very clinical way, and provide answers. Now that I'm in corporate, um, any problem can come. Like one day my boss was like, our store partners are not happy, we want to make them happy. I mean, how would you solve for this? But when you're, because of my experience in consulting, I was like, okay, let me take a step back. Let me look what is the challenge. Let me look what is it that I want to get out of it. How would I break down? So that gives me that confidence कि चलो मैं कुछ provide कर सकती हूँ. I can find a way out. So I think my consulting journey really taught me that. It gave me very hard challenges, and then I learned how to problem solve.
Somebody has asked a question, but I'll rephrase that question a bit. So they're asking, you were a fresher, and now consultant is almost like an advisor. And normally people take advice from people who are old, who have experience, and who know and have been through that journey. So was it difficult? Like, why would a company hire a fresher, number one? And was it difficult for you to gain that respect and that feel of responsibility that people are taking your advice?
Very good question. And what actually happens is that when you sell a project to a client, the client talks to a partner, and a partner is a person who has spent 20, 25 years in that industry. So he clearly is an expert. And my job as an analyst was not to tell the client that you should solve it like that. How it generally happens is that you have a problem, and then you sit with your team, and then you ideate कि भाई इसको कैसे solve करें. And then you figure out, let's analyze this, let's analyze this, let's analyze that. And that is the job manager. My manager told me that, okay, go here and look into this. And I think in my first few years, भाई मुझे क्या आना था यार, नहीं आता था. I even if I wanted to pretend that I knew, fact of the matter is I didn't. And they never position an analyst in front of a client to consult. That's why we do the grunt work behind the screen. But those are the years where you learn. And I think when I had spent 5, 6 years, and that's when I started talking to the clients, I had some knowledge in terms of, okay, so that's how we did it for multiple organizations. And I can bring that value to you by sharing how different organizations are doing it. And that's when I guess you start building respect. The other thing I'll say is that just learn throughout the way. Because if you are a faffer, if you don't know your content, then the client is going to call you out. Ki, matlab, what do you know? Why am I paying you crores to consult me when you yourself don't know? So there's a lot of homework that has to be done. You have to read about an industry. You have to go out in the field and collect your information. And all those things happen in the background that nobody talks about, but those are the things that actually teach you how to build that credibility for yourself.
Great answer. One is asking, can you tell us about your competition? Specifically, were there any CAs as consultants, or what was the major pool of people who were your competition, the background of and the qualification of those people?
A wide variety of them. If I look at the people who joined MBA, of course, a large chunk of them were engineers. But as you know, in the last 5, 6 years, even MBA colleges have started adding people for diversity, if you know what I mean. And in our batch, we had a lot of engineers, we had people from commerce background, we had doctors, we had CAs, I mean, all the less, we had people from design background as well. So, and what was refreshing? That when companies would see your CV, they would see what kind of a diversity do you or can you bring to an organization. Basically, after an MBA, they are not looking at experts from a field, because you are not an expert right after your MBA. They are looking for smart people who can learn and people who bring in some diversity. So let's say if you are a doctor, you definitely know about that industry, that profession very well. And now that you've done your MBA, so you know about business management as well. I know a doctor who did her MBA and joined Deloitte in their healthcare consulting practice. So there are pathways as well, and I would say don't think that मैं engineer नहीं हूँ या मैंने commerce नहीं किया, मैंने CA नहीं किया, I can't do an MBA. You definitely can. And it was not that because there was a CA, they would not consider me. They, I mean, I was a fresher, they only saw labels कि अच्छा 10th 12th में अच्छे number आए, SRCCC से वो किया है, चलो let's give this person a chance for an interview, because on paper the person looks intelligent, and obviously you have to go through the interview to see whether this person actually can learn or not. So it is not that if you are from a certain kind of background you don't stand a chance. You definitely stand a chance, because I think you bring in that diversity that companies value.
Okay. And the next is, so if you want to get into consulting, but you're a fresher, what are these people looking into? Like, as you said, your 10th, 12th, your SRCC, it's not that grade is important. It's just they saw you worked hard and you got those over the years, and consistently you got good marks. So something is good. So other than that, is there any specific thing that they can look into that, okay, this is he or she is a fresher with no experience, but still good enough to go for consulting?
So see, the thing is, at the end of the day, ask yourself that what is a consulting company looking for in a candidate or in a potential candidate? They want smart people who can work hard, who can learn fast, and who can perform well. Now, these are three things that are very difficult to judge in a CV. So, what are the kind of things that you will look for in a CV that can tell you whether the person is hardworking, whether the person is intelligent, can learn, and can think on their feet, is street smart? These are the traits. In our MBA, they used to, talk about a CV format, which was very famous. It was called a T format. Now, what is a T format? T format means a person having a breadth of, like the CV should have breadth. So what I mean is that not just a ghisu ki sirf अच्छे number लाया और कुछ नहीं किया, or not just a person who's done well in sports. They are looking for an all-rounder to say that, okay, this person was good in studies, not the best grades, but good grades. This person also, the CV also shows this person has interest in certain different kind of fields. They have good extracurricular as well. They have worked in a different industry. So I'm talking about a fresher. I'm not talking about an experienced person, right? So you can show that through good grades. You can show that through extracurricular leadership positions in your graduate college. That I was the head of this particular thing. I was passionate about this. If you are passionate about research, you can show some projects. If you are passionate about, let's say you've done some entrepreneurship gig, definitely show that. If you have a hobby, a passion that you have followed, definitely show that. So that just shows that, okay, this person has a lot of breadth in what they have done in life. That means this person is interesting. This person has caliber. And what I mean by the T is that you don't want a jack of all trades. You also want someone who has focus. So it doesn't have to be just in studies. It can be anything. So for me personally, I used to paint a lot in my free time. And I had painted so extensively over my life as a young student in my school that I had won over about 100 awards and certificates and in trophies and this and that. So I put it on my CV that I have won 102 awards in the field of painting and fine arts. So, that kind of tells them, okay, all-rounder, great overall mix, and then has that depth, has that passion in one thing. So we were kind of told to organize our CVs in a way that can convey the breadth and can convey the passion.
Oh, that's a very interesting thing. I didn't know about this at all. Somebody is asking, how important is finance in consulting?
No, it is not important at all. I would say during your MBA, the first year, they teach you some finance courses. So even if you are an engineer and you would not know accounting and some of those things, they teach you so that you become comfortable with the language. See, the thing is that any business case that you solve, you have to look at numbers. Any client project that you do where you are talking ki isse benefit kya hoga, you always look at the investment, the revenue, and you have to do some bit of number crunching. However, you don't have to be a finance expert for that. You just have to know these terms, and then you should be intelligent. I mean, you should just have common sense that, okay, I'm I'm looking at the value of this particular product to my client. So I need to calculate how much revenue can they earn. And that's when basic financial lingo is something that will come handy to you. And your first year of MBA kind of helps you prepare for that. So there's no reason to worry. People who want to pursue a career in finance or want to do financial consulting, want to go into PE, want to go into investment banking, they were the ones who, took specialization in finance courses. But for me, it helped me that I had the commerce background. So I very well knew accounting. I very well knew my finance courses. In my first year of college, I did my finance course as well. But in second year, I did not take a finance course because I just didn't enjoy them that much.
And one practical question about, did your company or companies ask for a 1 year contract with you? Is that a
No,
norm?
no.
Nothing like that.
The companies that I work for did not ask me. But yes, there are companies who have a lock-in period. So for me and Accenture, we were given a very hefty joining bonus. And the only thing was that if you plan to leave before a year, you have to give that bonus back. Now
Oh,
the bonus was pretty heavy. Nobody wanted to give that money back. So we were like, एक साल तो टिके रहे.
that's a nice way to keep people.
I know, man, if you are a young person, like,
Yeah.
23, 24, and they give you so much of money, and then you're like, no, 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 I'm going to stay.
Were any of your colleagues from a tier 3 engineering college who got into consulting?
Uh, so I let me be very honest here. I don't know what the tier three engineering colleges are. I know that there were people in my MBA who were from very different engineering colleges. Most of them were known. Some of them were a bit niche and not that known. Um, Let me be very honest here. If you are looking for a McKinsey, BCG, Bain type of a shortlist or getting there, those organizations do look for better brands, and even some of the more tier one consulting firms look for better brands. And as biased as it may sound, uh, sometimes the shortlisting criteria can be just this, put everything in an Excel, look for people or put a IIT filter and see what are there. I don't prescribe to this, but the sad reality is that sometimes things happen like that. Having said that, I'll say this thing, that you may not start your journey in consulting, maybe because you feel that, okay, I come from a certain college and that may not help me practice. But I have seen so many of my colleagues which were from smaller colleges or joined some other firm. And a couple of years into their firms, they joined my organization or they joined some other organization. And you would have not thought that if they would have gotten out of an MBA, they would have gotten into this consulting firm because the firm would not have given them a shortlist. But they made their way, in from a backdoor entry, and they have flourishing careers. So don't let that limit you. Surely the path will be a little different, but there's definitely opportunity, and companies don't think about your college, especially when you have good work ethics and you're doing well in your other job.
It's a very interesting way to, turn your hands and just reach wherever you want to go. I guess, yeah, we are done for today's webinar. So thank you everyone for joining Inside IIM. Thank you, Palak, for joining Inside IIM and giving your experience, learnings, in general, your opinions as well. It was an amazing, I think I took more time today, 1 hour, 15 minutes. Okay, there's one last question. Let's take one last question. Can you describe your experience with some cons? Oh, there are two questions. Three questions. 1 second. Can you describe your experience with some consulting projects? What exactly did you do? Maybe some takeaways. One example, maybe.
Okay. So I obviously I can't name those organizations because of NDA, but in one of my projects there was a healthcare company, and the healthcare company have frontline health workers, and they kind of saw that the frontline health workers were not performing good, and they did not have the capability because of their performance. They did not they weren't delivering good healthcare on ground. So they brought in us and said that, we want to enable our healthcare workers and we want to make them set up for or set them up for success. So that was a very, very broad statement. It didn't mean much. And we were like, okay, we traveled to certain states in India where the company has offices and they have their healthcare workers, travel to different villages, talk to them, observe their lives, see how they do their work, identify challenges, and come back to the client and say, why they are not working? Because of challenges ABC. They don't have tablets, they have to enter everything manually, they have to travel very fast, you are not enabling them well, blah blah blah. And then the company was like, okay, now that we have identified the challenge, let's create an app and let's give them a tool, an iPad or a phone, where when they have to go and do house visits, they can log in everything and they don't have to manually write it because it had errors. It would take so much time. So then, together with Accenture Tech, we worked on creating an app. We created a beta version of that, or a simple wireframe beta version of that app. Went to the ground and asked those guys, okay, use this app for 1 week, and then we'll come back and see if you like it or not. And then they came back to us with features that worked, features that didn't work. We went back, iterated on things, and then just created that platform for them. So that's a project where you see from advising to actually doing. But there were other projects which were more around, a company wanted to enter a new market and they were like, we don't know if this is going to be a good investment. So can you do a market study and come back to us with a proper due diligence report that this is a good market or not. So, we studied the market size, interviewed consumers, this, that. So yeah, those are some of the typical projects that I ended up doing.
Okay. Nice. And one last question, just one question. So, Siddhesh is saying, I am a non-MBA background with 3 years experience in IT industry. Can I aim for an entry-level consultant role? Any advice for me?
So, Siddesh, if you consulting is a different type. There is tech consulting as well. And I think even though you do not have an MBA, I don't think it should be something that should stop you from at least applying for tech consulting roles. Obviously, tech consulting is not just, I don't know what your experience is, but I'm just making this up. It's not just about coding, but you work with clients, understand what their business needs are, and then create platforms and code and this and that. I think if you have 3 years of work experience, you can definitely look for companies like Infosys, even Accenture, Capgemini. They have some of these consult or roles in the tech consulting space, and then you might just end up liking tech consulting. If not, you can see if there is an inward way to move to business consulting as well. But I feel, given the times that we are in, where everything is tech consulting is a great place to be in. So you can definitely try that.
Yeah, and maybe as Palak spoke about how you approach people through LinkedIn, how
Oh,
you get
sure.
into those networks. So you can use those channels to do whatever you want to now.
Yeah, as I said, be very respectfully shameless. We are not used to asking for help. Arey, ye banda kya karega? I wrote to 20 people. Only 3 of them said, okay, I am willing to speak to you, I'm willing to help. And rest 17 of them ghosted me. No one answered. And I was like, it's okay. let me keep trying.
Okay. If any other question is left that I didn't answer, I'm so sorry for that, but we will answer them as we go along, maybe today, tomorrow. No issues with that. So thank you, Palaks, for giving us so much information and learnings. And I hope if you can, maybe our audience wants you back once or twice to give your opinions to us. So please join us again if you can.
Absolutely, guys. You've been a wonderful audience. I've spoken way too much, but the fact of the matter is that I'm also on a learning journey like you. Maybe I might have seen a little more uh, life than you, but if in any way I can help you in sharing some of my failures, because I guess everybody talks about all the great things that they've done in life. He talks about the areas where they didn't do well in life or where they failed. I'm even happy to do that because I think you will kind of understand that you're not alone in this, and all of us went through those really deep, dark phases, circles, not knowing what to do in life is very common. We are a community. So feel free to reach out and more than happy to share my perspective.
Thanks a lot, Palak. Thank you. Really helpful. Thanks a lot, guys. And I'll see you in the next webinar. Bye, Palak. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye, guys. Bye.